She watched her best friend walk down the aisle in white, smiling like she always did. But beneath that smile, beneath the flowers and the music and the joy, she carried something else. Something that had been feeding on her for months. And when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," the groom didn't just collapse. He changed. Right there, in front of 400 witnesses, his body twisted, his spine cracked, and what stood in his place was no longer human. On what should have been the happiest day of their lives, love was devoured by something far more dangerous than hate. It was envy. And envy doesn't just ruin lives. It transforms them. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. This story begins in a small village in Georgia, where generations of black families had built their lives on red clay soil, Sunday church services, and the kind of community where everyone knew everyone's business. It was the kind of place where grandmothers still sang hymns on porches, where children played until streetlights came on, and where love stories were celebrated like they were written in the stars. The village wasn't just a location. It was a living, breathing entity that held its people close, protected them, and sometimes witnessed things that couldn't be explained. In this place, faith and folklore lived side by side. People believed in God, yes, but they also believed in roots, in spirits, in the things that moved in the dark when the moon was thin. They believed that jealousy was not just an emotion. It was a force. A living thing that could grow teeth if you fed it long enough. Jamal and Keisha had been inseparable since high school. He was the kind of man who made people feel seen, who laughed easily, who carried himself with quiet confidence but never arrogance. She was radiant, warm, the kind of woman who lit up rooms without trying. They met at a church picnic when they were 16, and from that moment, everyone knew. This was destiny. They dated through college, supported each other through hard times, celebrated each other's victories. Jamal proposed on the same bench where they'd had their first kiss, and Keisha said yes before he even finished the question. The wedding was set for June, and the whole village buzzed with excitement. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a testament to love that endured, love that was patient, love that was real. But in every story of light there is a shadow. And her name was Nia. Nia had been Keisha's best friend since middle school. They were inseparable, shared secrets, shared dreams, shared everything. Nia was always there, always supportive, always smiling. But if you looked closely, if you paid attention to the moments when Keisha wasn't watching, you'd see something else in Nia's eyes. Something cold. Something hungry. Because Nia didn't just admire Keisha. She envied her. She envied the way Jamal looked at her, the way he held her hand, the way he chose her. Nia had been in love with Jamal long before Keisha ever noticed him. She had dreamed of him, imagined herself in Keisha's place, rehearsed conversations that never happened. But Jamal never saw her that way. To him, Nia was just Keisha's friend. Sweet, kind, harmless. And that's what ate at her. The invisibility. The fact that she could stand right next to him and still be unseen. So she buried it. She smiled through their engagement party, helped plan the wedding, stood beside Keisha as her maid of honor. But inside the envy grew. It twisted and coiled and whispered to her in the quiet hours of the night. It told her she deserved him. It told her Keisha didn't appreciate what she had. It told her that if she couldn't have him, then maybe no one should. In African American folklore, there's an old saying passed down from the elders who remembered the ways of the old country. Jealousy is a seed that grows in silence. And if you water it with bitterness, it will bloom into something monstrous. Nia didn't just water that seed. She fed it blood. If you're still watching, remember to subscribe to enjoy more of this and drop a comment with, "I'm still here," so we know who's writing this case out with us. 3 months before the wedding, Nia started visiting a woman on the edge of town. Her name was Miss Lorraine, and she was known for 2 things. Healing the sick and cursing the wicked. People whispered about her, crossed the street when they saw her coming, but when they needed something, really needed something, they knocked on her door. Miss Lorraine didn't ask questions. She just looked at you with those ancient eyes and knew. When Nia walked into her small, incense-filled house, Miss Lorraine smiled. Not a kind smile. A knowing one. Nia told her everything. The years of longing, the rejection, the way Jamal looked through her like she was glass. And Miss Lorraine listened. Then she said, "You want him or you want her to lose him?" Nia paused. Then she said, "I want her to lose him." Miss Lorraine nodded slowly. That kind of work comes with a price. You take his humanity, you take yours too. But Nia didn't care. She was too far gone. She paid the price. Miss Lorraine handed her a small charm, wrapped in red cloth, stitched with black thread. She told Nia to place it under the altar where the vows would be spoken. And she warned her. Once it's done, it can't be undone. You'll carry this with you forever. Nia smiled. I can live with that. Little did they know, the one chosen to hold the veil would soon rip it apart. Envy is patient. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream. It sits quietly beside you at dinner, laughs at your jokes, compliments your dress. It waits. And while it waits, it plans. Nia moved through the final months before the wedding like a ghost playing human. She helped Keisha pick out flowers, adjusted her veil during fittings, threw her a bridal shower. On the surface, everything was perfect. But beneath that surface, Nia was unraveling. She stopped sleeping well. She dreamed of Jamal, but in her dreams he was always walking away. She started talking to herself, rehearsing arguments with people who weren't there. Her mother noticed. Her co-workers noticed. But when they asked if she was okay, she smiled and said she was just tired. She wasn't tired. She was possessed. Not by a demon, but by something just as dangerous. Her own bitterness. In African American communities, especially those rooted in the South, there's a deep respect for the spiritual realm. People understand that what you put into the universe comes back. They tell stories about women who cursed their rivals and ended up cursed themselves, about men who sought revenge and lost everything. These weren't just cautionary tales. They were warnings. But Nia didn't listen. She couldn't. The envy had become her identity. It was all she had left. She convinced herself that she was the victim, that Keisha had stolen her future, that Jamal owed her something. She replayed every interaction, every smile, every moment she was overlooked, and she built a case in her mind. A case that justified what she was about to do. 2 weeks before the wedding, Nia went back to Miss Lorraine's house. This time she wasn't nervous. She was resolute. Miss Lorraine looked at her and shook her head. You still have time to walk away from this. But Nia didn't want to walk away. She wanted to see it through. Miss Lorraine sighed, then handed her a second charm. This one was different. Darker. It smelled like sulfur and old earth. This one is stronger, Miss Lorraine said. This one doesn't just curse him. It reveals what's inside him. Whatever darkness he's hiding, whatever beast lives in his heart, it'll come out. And once it does, everyone will see. Nia asked what would happen to her. Miss Lorraine didn't answer. She just closed the door. The night before the wedding, Nia couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, clutching both charms in her hands. Part of her, a very small part, wondered if she should stop. If she should throw the charms away, confess to Keisha, beg for forgiveness. But that voice was drowned out by the louder one. The one that said, you deserve this. She doesn't. So she made her choice. She got up, got dressed, and drove to the church. It was 2 a.m. The building was empty, dark, silent. She used the key Keisha had given her, the one for the maid of honor, the one that symbolized trust. She walked down the aisle, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. She knelt at the altar, the place where Jamal and Keisha would stand tomorrow, the place where they would pledge their lives to each other. And she placed the charm underneath. She whispered the words Miss Lorraine had taught her. Words in a language she didn't understand but felt in her bones. Then she left. And as she drove home, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Relief. June 15th arrived with perfect weather. The sun was bright but not too hot. The breeze carried the scent of magnolias, and the church was filled with flowers, laughter, and love. Keisha looked like a dream in her white gown, her natural hair styled in elegant curls, her smile so wide it seemed impossible that anything could ever dim it. Jamal stood at the altar in a sharp navy suit, his hands clasped, his eyes locked on the door, waiting for his bride. The church was packed. Family, friends, neighbors, even people who barely knew the couple but came because this was a village wedding, and village weddings were everyone's business. The choir sang, their voices rising and falling in perfect harmony, filling the space with the sound of faith and joy. Nia stood beside the other bridesmaids, wearing a soft lavender dress, holding a bouquet of white roses. She looked calm, serene even, but inside her heart was pounding. She kept glancing at the altar, wondering if it would work, if the charm was strong enough, if she'd made a mistake. The ceremony began. Keisha walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Jamal's face broke into the kind of smile that only comes from pure, unfiltered love. When Keisha reached him, he took her hands, and for a moment, the world disappeared. It was just the two of them. The pastor, Reverend Clayton, opened his Bible and began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. The words were familiar, comforting, the same words spoken at 1,000 weddings before this one. Keisha and Jamal exchanged vows. Jamal's voice cracked with emotion as he promised to love her, protect her, honor her for the rest of his life. Keisha's vows were poetry, every word a testament to the years they'd spent building something real. The pastor smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. And that's when it happened. Jamal leaned in to kiss Keisha, but before their lips touched, he froze. His eyes went wide. His body went rigid. Keisha pulled back, confused. Jamal? He didn't respond. He couldn't. His hands, still holding hers, began to tremble. Then they began to change. His fingers lengthened, thickened, the skin darkening, coarsening. His nails turned black, grew into claws. Keisha screamed and let go, stumbling backward. The guests gasped, some standing, some frozen in shock. Jamal fell to his knees, his body convulsing. His spine arched, cracked, reshaped itself. His chest expanded, his shoulders broadened, his face elongated. His eyes, once warm and brown, turned yellow. Pharaoh. He opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a guttural roar. And then, in front of everyone, Jamal was no longer Jamal. He was a gorilla. Massive, powerful, terrifying. He stood on all fours, his breath heavy, his eyes wild. The church exploded into chaos. People screamed, scrambled over pews, rushed toward the exits. Women fainted. Men shouted. Keisha collapsed, her white dress pooling around her like a broken promise. And in the midst of all that chaos, Nia stood still, watching. A small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. But then something shifted. The gorilla turned toward her. Slowly. Deliberately. And in those yellow eyes she saw recognition. She saw rage. And she saw something else. Accusation. Can you imagine standing in that church, watching the man you thought you knew turn into something unrecognizable? What would you do? Would you run or would you stay? Drop your answer in the comments below, because this story is far from over. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. You won't want to miss what happens next. The village fell into a silence heavier than grief. No one knew what to do. The church was abandoned. Jamal, or the creature he had become, fled into the woods behind the church, crashing through trees, his roars echoing for miles. Keisha was taken to her mother's house, where she lay in bed, unresponsive, her mind unable to process what she'd seen. The wedding dress was carefully removed, folded, and placed in a box. No one spoke about it. What could they say? This wasn't something that could be explained by logic or science. This was something else. Something older. The elders of the village gathered that night at the home of Mother Geneva, the oldest woman in the community, a woman who had lived through segregation, through the civil rights movement, through wars and losses and miracles. She was 93 years old, blind in one eye, but sharper than anyone half her age. People called her the Oracle, not officially but in whispers, in moments of desperation. If anyone could make sense of this, it was her. The meeting took place in her small living room, lit only by candles. The elders were there, along with Keisha's parents, Jamal's mother, and several other respected members of the village. Nia was also there, though she didn't want to be. People had questions. They wanted answers. And somehow they all knew she was involved. Mother Geneva sat in her rocking chair, her hands folded in her lap, her good eyes scanning the faces in the room. She spoke slowly, her voice like gravel and honey. This is the work of envy. I can feel it. Someone in this room or someone close to this room has done something they can't undo. Nia's stomach dropped. She tried to keep her face neutral, but her hands were shaking. An elder spoke up. Mother Geneva, with all due respect, how do you know? How can you be sure? She turned her gaze toward him. Because envy has a smell. It smells like rot. And it's been in this village for months. Mother Geneva asked everyone to leave except for 3 people. Keisha's mother, Jamal's mother, and Nia. The others protested, but one look from Mother Geneva silenced them. When the room was clear, she turned to Nia. Child, come here. Nia hesitated, then stepped forward. Mother Geneva reached out and took her hand. Her grip was strong, unnaturally strong. She closed her eyes, and for a long moment the room was silent. Then she opened them and let go. You did this. Nia's breath hitched. I didn't. I don't know what you're. Don't lie to me, child. I can see it. You went to Lorraine. You made a deal. You cursed that boy because you wanted what wasn't yours. Keisha's mother gasped. Jamal's mother stood, her face a mixture of rage and heartbreak. You did this to my son? Nia backed away, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I just wanted. You wanted what? Mother Geneva's voice cut through the room like a blade. You wanted him? You wanted her pain? You got both. And now you'll pay. Mother Geneva stood, her frail body suddenly seeming larger, more powerful. She spoke in a voice that didn't sound entirely her own. Envy is a curse that eats its host. You thought you were punishing them, but you were punishing yourself. The darkness you put into the world doesn't disappear. It comes back. And it will consume you. Nia fell to her knees, sobbing. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can you fix it? Can you bring him back? Mother Geneva shook her head. Some things can't be undone. That boy is gone. What's left of him is a beast, and he'll live as a beast until the day he dies. And you? She paused, her eye boring into Nia's soul. You'll live too. But not as yourself. You'll become what you truly are. A shadow. Unseen. Unfelt. Unloved. You'll wander this earth, watching others live the lives you envied, and you'll never be able to touch them. That is your curse. And as those words left her mouth, Nia's body began to change. Not violently, not dramatically, but slowly. Her skin paled, her features blurred, her presence dimmed. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. She reached for Keisha's mother, but her hand passed through her like smoke. Within moments, Nia was gone. Not dead, but not alive either. A shadow. A memory. A warning. Jamal was never seen again. Some say he still roams the woods, living as a guerrilla, forgotten by the world but remembered by the village. Others say he died out there, alone, his body returning to the earth. No one knows for sure. What they do know is that every now and then, late at night, when the moon is thin and the air is still, you can hear a sound coming from the forest. A low, mournful cry. Some say it's just an animal. But the elders know better. They know it's Jamal, calling out for the life he lost, for the love that was stolen, for the humanity that was ripped away. Keisha never remarried. She left the village 6 months after the wedding and moved to Atlanta, where she built a quiet life. She became a teacher, spent her days shaping young minds, and in the evenings she sat by the window and wondered what could have been. She never spoke about that day. Not to her family, not to her friends, not even to herself. But sometimes late at night she'd dream of Jamal. Not as the beast he became, but as the man he was. And in those dreams they were happy. The village changed after that day. People became more careful with their words, more mindful of their hearts. They taught their children about envy, about the dangers of wanting what isn't yours, about the importance of gratitude. The story of Jamal and Keisha and Nia became a cautionary tale, passed down from generation to generation. And Mother Geneva, before she passed 2 years later, made sure to tell anyone who would listen. Jealousy doesn't just hurt the person you envy. It destroys you. It takes your humanity, your peace, your soul. And once it takes root, it's almost impossible to pull out. So guard your heart. Be grateful for what you have. And never, ever let envy win. Miss Lorraine's house was burned down one night, though no one admitted to doing it. Some say it was the village, tired of the darkness she brought. Others say it was something else. Something that didn't want her spreading more curses. Either way, she was never seen again. Nia's family tried to find her, but there was nothing to find. No body, no trace, no sign that she'd ever existed. Her room remained untouched for years, a shrine to a girl who had let envy consume her. Her mother would sit in that room sometimes, crying, asking God why. But there were no answers. Just silence. And shadows. To this day, people in that village say that if you walk through the town at dusk, you might feel a presence beside you. A cold breeze. A whisper. A shadow that moves when nothing else does. They say it's Nia, still wandering, still watching, still paying the price for what she did. And they say that if you're ever tempted by jealousy, if you ever feel that darkness creeping in, you should remember her. Because envy doesn't just ruin lives. It erases them. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Let's keep this conversation going. If you were Mother Geneva, would you have shown Nia mercy, or would you have done exactly what she did? Do you believe envy deserves punishment, or does it deserve compassion? Tell us in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective. They say to this day the echo of a gorilla's cry at dusk is a warning. Jealousy will always devour the heart that carries it. So guard yours. Protect it. And never let envy take root. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what you thought of this story. Because we've got more stories like this one. Stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the human heart. Don't miss out. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. Stay grateful. And remember, what you feed grows. So feed the right things.